it says misconception and misrepresentation lead to misunderstanding. I think that pretty well sums it all up. But just to give us an idea of how difficult it gets to be to sort of hang on to this stuff, it's hard, it's convoluted. I'm going to be careful not to go too deep, or else we will all get lost. Let's look at it. Brought my object lesson for today. This is a plant. It's a pretty plant. I stole it from the greenhouse. I think it's maybe a student project, but I will return it. I have a couple of questions to ask you. What makes this plant a plant? Where did it come from? How does it become a plant? Photosynthesis. Now, photosynthesis is a term that you're all familiar with. We know that it happens all the time, right? Common knowledge. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a very complex biological process, the result of which is the creation of order, a life-giving creative process of biology. Here are the essential ingredients of photosynthesis: carbon dioxide, water, sun energy, and voila, sugar. And then these plant cells, as they produce and store the sugar, have the pathways to be able to convert the sugar into proteins, fats, nucleic acids, and everything else that that cell needs, or those cells need, to give these cells the characteristics of life. So from carbon dioxide and water and a little sun energy, we get life. Boom. Now I have another question to ask you. I mean, you're all on board with me, so you understand photosynthesis? You believe photosynthesis is real? Photosynthesis is a real biological process? No argument on that one? I'm setting you up. So here's the question. You've got to answer it one way or the other. No qualifications. So is photosynthesis really real? Or is God real?
Yes.
Yes. Now we look at this sort of thing, and immediately it just is repulsive, isn't it? What a dumb question. It's an absurd question. It's a faulty premise, flawed assumptions. Everyone knows that they are not mutually exclusive, that they can both be real. But let's look at another flawed premise. Is evolution real? Or is God real? You've probably heard it expressed this way. Do you believe in creation? Or do you believe in evolution? God or scientific process? Photosynthesis takes simple with some light energy and forms complex structure, order, and life. Evolution does precisely the same thing. A biological process for creating order out of disorder in biological beings. And I understand that there's lots of questions that arise when it comes to evolution, but what I find in my experience is the greatest difficulty is that people on different sides of science-faith arguments simply don't know what the other is saying. And so when we talk about evolution, I say that word to you, and you have a concept in your mind of what evolution is, and I have to be really suspicious that it's probably not the same as what I have. So let's look at that. Let's just divulge here for a couple of seconds and look at coming to terms with terms, definitions of evolution. Several different ways that evolution can be understood. Evolution has changed through time. We can all understand that. We can say Olivet has evolved over time. It's changed. That concept of just generic change through time. Second definition of evolution is what I call chemical evolution. Now, chemical evolution is a little more complex. Chemical evolution is the concept that the Earth in its early formation period had just the right assortment of chemicals and biological molecules that got together in just the right sort of way to create the first living cell. That's chemical evolution. The problem with chemical evolution is that there is no scientific evidence to say that it is true. This is what we know for sure regarding chemical evolution, and it's really not even connected to chemical evolution. But this is what we know that's connected in one way. About 3.8 billion years ago, there were very simple, small, single-celled organisms on this planet. They were there. No one, not even a single scientist, however, knows how those cells got there. No one. The last conference proceedings that I read on chemical evolution, they do their summary statement at the end. So I'm reading the conference proceedings, and they basically had this big conference on chemical evolution and threw up their hands and said, we don't know. It's tough. So if somebody wants to be opposed to evolution, here's a great place to be, because you're safe there. You're on solid ground. There is no scientific evidence to prove chemical evolution. Now, does that mean that we don't still consider it as a possibility? Even in Random Designer, I laid out the evidence that sort of supports that, but it's not proof. Okay? It's just where the evidence is at. The other type of evolution is what I call evolution in the process. Evolution in the process involves genetic mechanisms. So the question for us to consider is, do these genetic mechanisms exist? Are there ways, you remember that slide back where I showed you the 5 nucleotide bases at a time? And I pointed out to you that if you change even one, a mutation, you've changed the sequence, you've changed the code, you've given opportunity. Evolution, the process by which organisms change over a period of time, are well understood. Lots of different mechanisms for that to occur. The sexual reproduction is just one of them. But even random mutation itself, the innate errors that are made as DNA reproduces itself, are part of that overall process. So this one, evolution, the process, well established, well understood. The fourth one here is biological evolution. Biological evolution starts with those single cells that were present 3.8 billion years ago and says, is there a way, do we have evidence to show that those single cells are descended to all of us, all life on the planet, using our understanding of evolution, the process? And the answer to that question is a resounding yes. Biological evolution has occurred. There's virtually no doubt about that anymore. We'll talk about that here in a few moments again. So, sometimes we hear this thing thrown around, is evolution a theory or a fact? I need to clarify that for a moment. Because when non-scientists think of a theory, they often think of something like a guess. A theory is just a guess, just an opinion. In the scientific realm, theory has much more weight than that. In the scientific realm, a theory is actually even perhaps stronger than a fact. Evolution is both a theory and a fact. What is a fact? Something that we can demonstrate to be true. Fact is, biological evolution has occurred. We can demonstrate that in a variety of different ways. The theory, however, explains many diverse facts from many different scientific disciplines. So when we talk about the evolutionary theory, we're not just talking about biology or genetics. We're also talking about geology. We're talking about astronomy. We're talking about biochemistry. And we're attempting to frame all of those together in a way that they make sense. So evolution, the theory, is actually even perhaps stronger. It's assembling the body of facts together into a coherent paradigm. Okay, so now let's go on just a little bit deeper. Framing the question. Anyone knows in a court setting